Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No sense, Mr. Speaker. I couldn't agree more. Here we have the NDP claiming to have torn up their deal, their carbon tax coalition with the Prime Minister. But then they taped it back together when he promised a 2-month tax trick. Then, after taking credit for it, the NDP says they didn't know what was in it. Right. And now they're opposed to it. Mr. Speaker, these two leaders can't even figure out how to give away $6 billion properly. Isn't it time for a carbon tax election so that we can elect a common sense government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, MPs are supposed to represent their constituents here in Ottawa, but the Conservative Party MPs are choosing to represent their leader back in their constituency. I know Canadians across the country, including in Conservative ridings, are looking forward to paying no taxes on meals in restaurants or on all groceries or on kids' clothes for the next few months. But the leader is making them vote against these measures to help Canadians. If Conservative MPs want to stand up for Canadians, they need to stand up against their leader.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians are ready to stand up and speak for themselves. The Prime Minister wants to lecture us about democracy. Then why don't we have a referendum? A referendum election where the choice will be the following. A tiny 2-month tax trick with the NDP Liberals, or a permanent axing of the carbon tax and axing the sales tax on new homes. Why not let Canadians decide now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, for the Leader of the Opposition to end the price on pollution would mean to end the Canada carbon rebate that comes to people's homes 4 times a year and delivers more money to middle-class Canadians than the price on pollution actually costs, while at the same time decreasing emissions. And in regards to housing, his failed housing proposal was to cut billions of dollars from cities across this country that they're investing in building housing. That would drive up property taxes for homeowners. That would make it harder to build homes. He has a proposal that is electorally interesting for him, but won't do anything for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Electorally interesting. That's his condescending way of saying Canadians actually like my plan. Because Canadians have figured out that after 9 years of this weak Prime Minister, spending $80 billion on housing, with the result being the doubling of housing costs, that spending billions more won't make any difference. We're going to slash that bureaucracy and use the savings to axe the sales tax on Canadian homes. Why won't he let Canadians decide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mayors from Kelowna, Abbotsford, Ucluelet, all in Conservative ridings across the country are speaking up that the investments we're making in the housing accelerator is helping them cut red tape, increase densification, create more homes more quickly. And the plan the Conservative Party has put forward to remove those billions of dollars from municipalities, just as they're tackling the housing crisis, would harm Canadians. But the Leader of the Opposition doesn't care about harming Canadians. What he wants to do is gain power, and he'll do anything he can to do that. While we stay focused on Canadians, he's focused on himself.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has run a groundbreaking experiment. He's put billions of dollars in a sack and offered it to politicians, and the finding? They're willing to accept the money. Incredible. A groundbreaking sociological study. He wants to give more money to local politicians who block home building. We want to use the same money to cut taxes for the people who buy homes and build homes. Why won't we allow Canadians to decide whether they want the money to go to the politicians or to the people in a carbon tax election?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, at least the Conservative leader is true to form in that he would rather pick fights with everyone than actually deliver for Canadians. We know, as we saw during the pandemic, as we've seen through the inflation challenges, working together with the provinces, working together with municipalities to get things built for Canadians is what they want. What does the Leader of the Opposition do? He insults people, but then he also votes against direct money in Canadians' pockets, whether it's with investments in childcare or dental care, whether it's investments in taking the tax off of groceries for the next few months. These are things that he's standing against out of political self-interest.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just shows how out of control he's become. He can't stay on a subject. He brings up housing, so I agree. I just threw away my script and said, let's debate housing. So he now changes the subject back to his 2-month tax trick. Well, here's the trick, everyone. After the tax break runs out in February, they're going to hike the carbon tax on heat, housing, gas, and groceries, all as a part of a plan to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. So will he get himself under control, show some strength for a change, and call a carbon tax election?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, every day I get up in this House, I talk about one thing and one thing only, Canadians, and how we are there to help Canadians, how we are there to grow a stronger economy for Canadians, with direct investments that will support them, with free insulin, with dental care, with more spaces in childcare, all things that the Leader of the Opposition is voting against. Yes, we're investing in the most ambitious housing solution that this country has ever seen, things that he didn't do when he was Stephen Harper's failed housing minister. We're going to continue to stand up and fight for Canadians while the Leader of Opposition gets up, pulls off his little performances, and fights against me.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He said he was going to talk about one thing, and then he rambled on about 10 or 15 things, all things he hallucinates that one day he might do if only he were given another 9 years in office, Mr. Speaker. Instead of talking about his real record, which is that he doubled housing costs, he doubled food bank use, he doubled the debt, and now he wants to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Mr. Speaker, we need a Prime Minister who's in control of himself, so why doesn't he call a carbon tax election so we can get one?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll say it again. The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. But the Leader opposite wants to talk about one thing. He talked about food banks. Let's talk about the school food program. This is a program that sends federal dollars directly into school boards, directly to support delivering good food programs for kids. No bureaucracy, just investments in school food programs. The Conservative leader voted against it, and worse, he forced his own MPs to vote against it, to stand up against their constituents and side with him instead of in Canadians who need help.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, imagine what we could do with $6 billion. Everyone in this House has already voted on a measure for more money for retirees aged 65 to 74. We could put $3 billion in housing, for instance, which would help families. The problem, though, Mr. Speaker, is that the Prime Minister doesn't seem to realize that most of this House no longer has confidence in him. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from coast to coast to coast, Canadians are struggling. That's why we are helping them directly with a 2-month tax break to help them get through difficult times. We are also offering direct support to workers, those who have been working for a long time. As for seniors, we've invested heavily in them over the past few years. We've also invested significantly in young people. Workers need support too. This rebate will deliver direct support to workers, support that they need. But once again, the Bloc Québécois is just looking for a fight. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. It's clear that retirees and young people must be pretty confused hearing that they've been helped so significantly. Mr. Speaker, no one wants these Christmas goodies, these presents. The Liberal Party of Canada's members of Parliament and all other members here voted in favour of equality for retirees. I think people are ready to pay a certain level of taxes if their money is going to be handled and spent properly. Is the Prime Minister ready to move a confidence vote on his new measures? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois has Bloc Québécois opposition days during which they can set the agenda in the House. Meanwhile, we will continue to work to support seniors, which is what we've been doing for a long time. We will continue to take good care of seniors. We will continue to invest in them. We also want to invest in workers to acknowledge the hard work that they do, to acknowledge the struggles they've been through with global inflation, with the pandemic. We are here to support them. If the Bloc Québécois wishes to vote against workers, then they can feel free to do so, and then they can explain that to workers in Quebec and elsewhere. We are here to support workers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.